We're back to WWB. Welcome to this week's episode, everyone. I'm here. My partners in crime, tag team partners, Jeremy and Matt, are off on injury today. I'm like the Jey Uso, okay, out of the big clan who's operating by himself right now. So I am flying solo for this episode. And you know, one thing that I've always learned in the wrestling business a little bit is that either nothing is going on or everything is going on. And we got a sheet here of all the stuff ready to go over. And just like that, it's been news dropping all day today. Hot off the press stuff going on here in the pro wrestling industry. So we're going to go over all of that here today. A lot of stuff we're going to go over. We're going to go over the UFC, WWE merger, updates on that. Vince McMahon had a meeting with all the personnel at WWE. WWE had a lot of layoffs. Of course, we had The Rock return. We had Becky Lynch on NXT. We have a lot of AEW injuries from Dynamite last night. So we have a lot of stuff we're going to jump into. Let's first start with kind of what happened this week on the shows. NXT drawing some serious numbers real quick. I think they had like 845,000 people that tuned in, 850,000 that tuned in. Becky Lynch on the show, very close to Dynamite, which had 887 followers. So again, you know, WWE is really showing that they're putting some of their star power on NXT to really try to make it, you know, they're trying to increase those ratings and they're trying to increase those demographic numbers, trying to put NXT further on the map, up the rankings of the show, however you want to call it. I think they're doing a pretty good job of that. I personally like the idea of sending some of the top superstars over to that show, rather it's a developmental show or whatever they may want to call it. I think having some of the more established talents on that show not only helps build the roster, but it's really making NXT, you know, putting them on the map even more. And I think they have an opportunity. NXT, in my vision, has always been a show that you can go and you can try new things, build a character, try something that may not be worth the time on Raw or SmackDown to try. That's always been my understanding of NXT. I'm sure some other people have other understandings, but I think it's only going to work out well there. The NXT adding some of the more established talent. All right, so let's talk about AEW and their show last night. 887,000 followers. It was Dynamite Grand Slam, and really the one thing that stood out for me that I saw coming out of that show this morning, again piling on the news here for today, is that Jon Moxley, injured at the show, apparently wrestled the match with a minor concussion. John and Ray battling for the AEW International Championship. I did actually go and watch the match after I read this, and you could tell something was going on. You could tell they must have changed the match midway towards the end. I'm guessing it was supposed to be Jon Moxley who won. Instead, Ray won. So it looks like that is, I don't know the severity of his injury. I heard he walked out on his own, so that's always a good sign when dealing with concussion symptoms. So hopefully, he's not out for too long of a time. And apparently Adam Page, I read, was actually injured as well. He was walking out of the hospital on crutches. So I'm guessing I guess he jumped off the ring apron and landed on his foot wrong way. So that didn't go well for him. So it looks like Grand Slam coming out with some injuries. Overall, 887,000, not bad. I think that's pretty. It's not bad for AEW. I think it's not like way over the charts. So I think it's like right where AEW been running rating wise. So not necessarily a bad show for them. So that's kind of some couple things that happened in NXT and AEW. I'm not gonna go over anything on Raw. SmackDown, obviously the big return of The Rock. I'm gonna talk about that at the end of the episode, but that obviously makes for one of the big situations, one of the big storylines that happened this week on TV. But we're going to talk about that at the end. Let's dive into here to the news coming out of today. Let's start with WWE and the UFC TKO merger. So obviously the merger, as we discussed last week here on the show, became official. TKO Holdings now on the stock exchange. So as expected, now that TKO has full control, ultimately 51% to Vince's 49%, now the changes come, right? It's something that Matt Jeremy and I have discussed numerous times that now that they have full control, let's see what really happens. And apparently, WWE's trying, or Endeavor is trying to cut over $100 million in costs from WWE. And the first step to do that in any way and form of trying to cut costs in any business is slimming down the payroll and the staff. And apparently that happened on Friday. Nick Khan sent out an email that employees will be working from home so they can be properly notified if they were to be released. Some of the names that just happened were Executive Vice President of Development and Digital, Catherine Newman, EVP of Marketing, which I believe she took over for Stephanie McMahon. So when Stephanie McMahon stepped down for Chief Brand Officer, I think this Catherine Newman took over. So that was interesting. So basically saying what Stephanie McMahon did was irrelevant. I'm guessing, the thought process behind that is Endeavor is going to have their own marketing concept, their own marketing department. Why have two? But WWE, whether combined or not, it's a pretty big company where there's a lot of marketing involved. I'm not quite sure how that department's getting reallocated or switched around, but I got to imagine that's a pretty big department for WWE. Amanda Bloom, Director of Enterprise, Master Data and Governance, is out. See that right there? That's a position that I'm sure can be covered at the corporate TKO or Endeavor. So that I'm not surprised with. And Jamie Horowitz, as I already said, Executive Vice President of Development and Digital. And I saw a lot of other names on there. So a lot of people, a lot of big titles. So I think there probably could be some cleaning up, and that's exactly what Ari's going to do. They're going to go in, they're going to look at the company, they're going to say what's needed, what's not, and that's clearly what's happening right now. They had a meeting, I believe, Tuesday at WWE headquarters. At the meeting was Nick Khan, was Triple H, it was Ari, the CEO of 2KO, and Vince McMahon later appeared after. From what I was told, they came out on the old Titantron for Raw. I'd like to know where that was set up. Where can they fit that? Do they have enough room in their new offices to fit an entire Titantron? I don't know. I'd love to see more about that story, but that's from what I was told. But nonetheless, they showed up, kind of addressed the employees. One thing that Vince McMahon said, and I believe that let me get the exact wording because I want to be exact on it. Is that he said that WWE had no more room for growth under its current landscape, and that they plateaued, and that the only way for WWE to grow and to further itself in the market is to merge with TKO. I gotta say that my personal opinion, I'm a big WWE fan. I love the business side of WWE. I love this topic. I love that when Vince stepped down, came back, took control of the board. I loved all those storylines. I say storylines, it's like you're watching the storyline, but it's actually real life. I do believe there's a lot of politics being played behind the scenes. For Vince to come back and say, we had to do this merger for WWE to grow. I mean, the numbers were pretty strong with WWE, right? I mean, they were increasing, they were growing. I got to imagine a new TV deal, which actually happened today. We'll talk about that in a minute. But if that were to take place without TKO, I got to imagine they'd be getting relatively the same numbers that they're getting today. So even that would have been growth. So the idea that Vince is selling that WWE had to grow by going to TKO, that's the only way they could grow. I don't know if I buy that. I think, I don't know if I buy that. Vince is known for always thinking and looking around the turn and around the curve, and I just don't know if I don't know if I buy that. I don't know. I think it's more Vince wanted control back onto the board. He pushed his way back in. He got himself back on there, and he made a deal that I think could allow him to stay involved, have some of that control, get paid a substantial amount of money for his shares, okay, and continue down this road for the next couple of years. I think WWE would have been growing rather than with TKO or not. They've been showing some of the best revenue numbers in quite some time. The morale at WWE was through the roof with Stephanie McMahon and Triple H. I think the morale is a little bit down. I'm sure there's some people excited about what could come with TKO. I'm sure down the road a lot's going to come from that. But I think right now, the morale in WWE is kind of like, we really didn't have to do this. And I agree. I don't think they had to go with UFC and Endeavor to create TKO. They could have stayed where they're at. But from what I've read, from Sean Rassap and PW Insider is that it was not well received. Vince saying that WWE needed Endeavor to grow. That's because the business did great after Vince resigned in August of last year, and saying that it plateaued just doesn't make any sense. So I believe that. I think it's say what it is, Vince. Say what it is. You did this to further yourself, stockholders. That's fine, but don't say you need to do it to grow the WWE, because it didn't need to grow. It was growing. Outside of that, on the topic of Vince McMahon, the Los Angeles Times dropped an op piece on Vince saying that his time could be limited with Endeavor and TKO and WWE based off of what may or may not come from the investigations. Obviously, we all know what happened with Vince. He got in trouble for paying hush money, which then got him removed as CEO and chairman. He forced his way back into the board as chairman. And then later, just I think like a month or two ago, actually got served a search warrant at his residence. No charges have come from that, but the SEC and the Connecticut Department of Justice, I believe, they could drop something at any moment. And from what I've read, it could be both civil or criminal, and stuff like that. When that happens, you can't sit on a board of a publicly traded company. So the idea that Vince is just automatically locked in as executive chairman, that may not be the case. I don't know how much I believe this op piece. I'm not a big fan of those type of things, and there's a lot of people that got together to really shit on Vince. Do I think it's true or not? Probably. I think some of it, I think it's probably legitimate. One of them was a board member that got forced out. Yep, I believe Vince probably forced him out 100%. But, I don't know what criminal charges could come from that, and I'm not sure if they would go to the extent of he's now barred from serving on a publicly traded company. So, a little side note there. So, Los Angeles Times posted that article. That was all out in the news yesterday, so you have that. Off of the merger last week, TKO and WWE finally announced their first official business act as a company merged together. They have signed a 5-year TV rights deal with NBC Universal for WWE Smackdown. That's right. It's leaving Fox. It's going to be going to NBC Universal. It's going to be on the USA Network Friday nights. Reportedly, from CNBC, valued at $1.4 billion. So that's approximately, I think, $187 million a year, which is approximately 40% increase. So again, I go back to saying that WWE's not growing. 40% bump on your TV rights. That was going to happen with or without TKO. Okay, so I don't know. I've read that a lot of people are actually disappointed in that was lower than their expectations. The TKO stock actually took a dive today off of that news. I think down 15%, going at like $87 a share right now, down from like 101, 102 this morning. So not necessarily good news. I don't know what they were expecting there. One thing that it did say is that this was not rights to Raw or NXT, which are currently on the USA Network. So clearly, in my opinion, again, mine, if NBC Universal was going to put a package together for everything, it would have been announced for everything. Okay, SmackDown's going for $1.4 billion. Raw's going to be going to something relatively similar. I don't think NBC Universal is going to be paying roughly $3 billion for Raw and SmackDown, and then a little bit more on top of that for NXT. So that makes me believe that Raw and NXT are going to be leaving the USA Network. I think they just locked in that deal for SmackDown. I'm having a tough time deciding which one's more valuable, Raw or SmackDown. Up until it went to Fox, I was always going to say Raw. Raw is the flagship show of WWE. It's been on the USA Network since 1993, I believe. It went over to TNN for like 5 years, and then it's been with the USA Network ever since. So, and I think it's the longest serving cable TV show, consecutive cable TV show. So they have a value, okay? And obviously, I always put Raw was always a premier show over SmackDown. When SmackDown went to Fox Network, that changed a lot. That was prime time, baby. Friday night on a basic cable channel. Apparently, I think from what I read today, the Fox channel gets roughly 18 million more viewers, or has 18 million more households than the USA Network. So not as much as I would have thought. I would have thought Fox would have had a lot more than that. But, I mean, SmackDown's been averaging roughly 2 million viewers an episode, and Raw is at about 1.7, 1.8. You know, SmackDown's been up to 2.3. So SmackDown is averaging more viewers. So I'm kind of torn on what the numbers are going to be here. Is 1.4 for SmackDown going to be the top dollar? Is Raw going to come in for more than that? I mean, you could argue that Raw may come in at a higher value because of its history, its longevity. It's been around a long time. It's 3 hours compared to 2. Maybe some more potential income for that. So, but at the same time, SmackDown has more viewers the last 5 years. So you could argue that SmackDown is technically more value than Raw. So I don't know where the Raw numbers are going to fall in here. I really don't. I think that at any moment, I think we'll get an announcement from Raw relatively soon. I think it's going to be some kind of streaming service. I think Disney is a very strong player. I think the USA deal was the relationship they have with WWE. Okay, they've had a long time. They don't need TKO to build a great deal with WWE. They've been doing it since 1993. I think where TKO endeavor is going to be played into is going to be the Monday Night Raw deal on some kind of streaming service, Disney maybe, ESPN. You know, there's a lot of different FX. I think there was an article that went out today, some news around that Raw is not. I'm trying to see. It's not. Yeah, I don't see it here. Yeah, I don't see it. But you know, so Raw could be announced at any moment. From what I was told, from what I read earlier, is that there's some unusual players involved, and with no elaboration on that. So I think they could surprise. I think what's going to ultimately end up happening, it's going to be a very weird deal that no one is used to for a whopping amount of money. Jeremy doesn't like it when I say this, but when Thursday Night Football took their rights, the NFL took their rights and sold them to Amazon. It was like the largest money given for the football deal. And you have to have Amazon Prime to watch it. That's different for everyone. Whether everyone has Amazon Prime or not, that is still different for everybody. Okay, you have to get used to that. It's a different process to watch Thursday Night Football. Okay, so the viewership isn't going to be what it was on a basic cable or cable network station. So I think something different could be played here for Raw. I can see ESPN doing it and putting it on an app. I can see FX doing it. I can see Amazon going for it. I really can. I really think it's down to Disney or Amazon. I think those. I heard Apple may be interested in it. So I think it could be a player that's not familiar with WWE product right now. So, it's got to be. I mean, NBC would have done a deal for all of them if they're going to announce one. But instead they went for SmackDown. So, big news out of that. So that is, we've been talking about that for the last couple of months about the new deal coming up. So definitely something definitely to keep an eye on for Raw and NXT, because they were not included in that. While I'm sitting here, article did pop up here on Cage Side Seats that a statement was made that McMahon's membership on the board could expose us to negative publicity and/or adverse financial or operation impacts to our business. If membership is also may be a result of scrutiny. So basically what you're saying is they can remove Vince if he has some bad publicity. So Vince's role on the board is not a guarantee. So something just popped up here on my screen on the side. So something to keep an eye on there. But that's not necessarily a guarantee that Vince is there. But enough on Vince. Some other stuff that's happened here today. A lot of WWE released a lot of, and the list just keeps getting bigger from when I looked at it earlier. WWE released a lot of wrestlers and ones that really haven't been on TV much the last couple of months, so I don't think it has any impact on current storylines in WWE. Could be some interesting, interesting people going over to AEW potentially. Mustafa Ali gone, Elias gone, Top Dollar gone, Rick Bowes gone, Riddick Moss let go, Shelton Benjamin, Dolph Ziggler, probably the biggest name on this list, gone. Dana Brooke is new, so that just got added from what I saw before. Quincy Elliott, Bryson Montana, Commander Aziz, I probably said that wrong. So a lot of people getting let go. Looks like probably cleaning up on the roster. Again, we should slap a sign up here that says $100 million. Okay, and anytime WWE makes a cut, we're going to point to $100 million because that's what they're trying to cut. $100 million in operating costs. And that right there may not be a lot compared to other superstar contracts, but that right there is cleaning it up. Elias has never seemed to get off on WWE programming, in my opinion. He could be a henchman over at AEW. He could go there and have some kind of role that could be popular in AEW. Rebuild his character, rebuild his image. I think Dolph Ziggler is just. I think he's old. I think he's past his prime. Dolph Ziggler was one of those guys. He'd take chair shot after chair shot for WWE. I think he's done his time. Maybe he can go over and be some kind of faction leader at AEW or some kind of leader over there behind the scenes or back. But I don't think there's anything more. I'm not surprised with this list of people that have been let go by WWE. It does not surprise me. So, so we got big TV deal announced today. We have people getting let go. So a lot of things, injuries at AEW. So a lot of things happening today in the wrestling world. Going here solo here, so I got to try to keep up where I'm at. Real quick, just a couple of highlights. I'm not going to go over them too much, but just real quick. RVD, I did see, is advertised to join AEW Collision on the 23rd episode this Saturday. I did also see Jeremy was nice enough to make me the sheet of news and rumors. So some of them I've already seen. But nonetheless, I want to go over. CM Punk has no plans to sue Tony Khan, wants to move on. And I saw another thing too that I really only read Cage Side Seat, so I'm just gonna put that down as a source. But that nobody within WWE has said no to CM Punk coming back. It's always, we'll see what happens. But best of luck to him. No one is saying no. So this idea that can't happen. And we talked about this last week, and I think Matt and I kind of shared the same point towards Jeremy, is that WWE has no more surprise returns left. Everybody's done. Stone Cold's returned. The Rock has returned. Hulk Hogan has returned multiple times. Brock Lesnar has come back. You look at big-time superstars that have been with WWE and that have left and now are waiting to come back. I think Cody Rhodes was one of them that's now taking place. I think one of the last ones out there is CM Punk. So the idea that they're not trying to get him to come on over to WWE, I think you're exposing yourself to, you're being naive to the fact that that can't happen. It can happen. And, I have my beliefs on what happened with CM Punk. I think he wanted out of his contract personally. So I don't know if he's that actually crazy behind the scenes or if he was just doing it to get out of his contract. I think there's a real possibility. I'll back off of my statement in the next 30 days, but I think there's a strong possibility in the next year that CM Punk could end up on WWE television. QT Marshall staying with AEW. Dolph Ziggler could go to WWE. We already talked about that. Prior to the show yesterday, a little bit more off of Grand Slam. The Arthur Ashe Stadium was approximately 64% sold out. I did also read that they had a huge line at the door to get in for people who did not have tickets. So the show did very well from what I was told. The rating's not that bad. So again, AEW continuing to spice up the content with different ideas and different things. Grand Slam seems to be no different. Looks like it's going well there. All right, let's dive into my topic of the week, something that I've been really excited about. Obviously, the return of the great one, The Rock, on WWE SmackDown this past Friday night. I did see, I've seen a lot of, I always get those little alerts, the possibility of The Rock. I never look at him seriously anymore. I've heard him over and over and over again, and it's like, and there's a little bit of me like, well, he could return, but I saw this one. I saw that The Rock was on the Pat McAfee show, which is in Denver, or not outside of Denver. It was in Colorado. And clearly SmackDown was in Denver. So they said there's a strong possibility that they could show up. Rumors were swirling. I actually forgot all about it. Okay, I forgot all about that. And then I was in line getting my dinner at Chipotle, and I got 4 calls. People call me, The Rock's back, The Rock's back, The Rock's back. I'm like, is it a segment or is it just a video? I'm in line. I'm like, is it a segment? Is he doing something or is it just like a promo video? And I was like, no, he's in the ring. He's in the ring. So I flew home and pulled up my YouTube TV and pulled up my library with all my SmackDowns that I haven't watched in 5 years, and pulled up SmackDown, and you know what? It was a classic. It was a great Raw segment, or a great Rock segment on SmackDown. Pat McAfee came down, did his old, couple, crowd reacting comments, got them going, and out comes Austin Theory. Love Austin Theory. I think that guy. I know Matt and Jeremy may think that he's cooled off. I think he's. I think I don't want to use. I mean, I think he's the shit. Okay, I think he's a great heel. I think he's athletic. I think he has the talent. I think they just don't know what to do with him right now. He clearly is getting the reaction of the crowd because they were booing him like crazy, even before The Rock came out. But it was a good old classic. He insults the people, and Pat McAfee goes, this is a crowd. This show is the show for the people, and do you know what that means? And then you got the, if you smell, and the crowd just went berserk. It was, what I like about the Rock returns, I don't want to keep saying Raw, is that you actually see the crowds reacting like they used to react back in the day. These days, they come out, people just standing there, they got their phone, they just watch. Where are the days when people are jumping up and down, excited, throwing their signs, bumping into the person next to them as they're going crazy? You don't see that anymore. So when The Rock's music hit and they show the crowd, people jumping out of their seats, bumping into someone, knocking the person in front of them down. Everyone's excited to see The Rock. Some guy throwing popcorn up in the air, walking down the stairs to get to his seat. He can't believe it. That's what's missing. Okay, from all of the live events, AEW, Impact, WWE, you just don't see the same crowd reactions that you used to see back in the day. And I don't know what that means. I don't know what it stands for. You can blame it on there's no cameras anymore. Everyone can just tape it on their phones. But are people really not that excited? The exciting factor should not change now from it was 20 years ago. So I don't know why people don't react the way they used to. But nonetheless, it was great to see the crowd going wild. The Rock comes out, does his classic. It takes 5 minutes to walk down to the ring. Walks in, takes a photo with some little girl, gets up on the ring. One thing I'll say that I wasn't impressed for, and someone's probably getting their ass jacked behind the scenes, is the production of the Rock entrance was not that good. The Rock comes out, some guy's walking by behind him with a cell phone. You can tell he must be doing some kind of social media post. But again, caught on camera. Rock walks down to the ring, gets up onto the apron, and gets to about the ring post, and there's the camera guy blocking him. He actually had to tell him to move so he can get up onto the ring to do his, to raise his arm. You can tell they weren't, either they have some turnover in the production crew, or they just weren't ready or weren't in tune for The Rock to come back. So I'm going to put it more towards, they just have some new people working there. But nonetheless, the whole segment was great. A lot of the Rock's words going back and forth with Austin Theory. Austin Theory ticks The Rock off, gives him a shot at. The Rock did say, "Hit me," and again, this is where it's not as good as it used to be. The Rock's going 3, 2, and then when he's down 2, he goes, "Hit me," and Austin now hits him, gets a couple jabs in. Rock comes back, spine buster, people's elbow. Pat McAfee does the people's elbow. Okay, end of segment. It was a classic Rock segment that went on for I think like 20, 23 minutes. I heard they had to cut up Smackdown because the segment went too long. And I'm sorry, guys. If that's a problem, then that's a big problem you guys have. Because you know what? If I'm Triple H in the back, I'm saying let The Rock stay out there as long as possible. We'll take 5 minutes of the shit going on backstage and get rid of that content for this content out in the ring. And I think it was, great. I think The Rock made a great scene. It's getting him back into the product again. Of course, and I thought this, and then it actually happened. I said, you have John Cena and The Rock in the same building at the same time on SmackDown. They have to do a segment together. I'm shocked that those two aren't down at the ring together. And lo and behold, there was a segment a little bit later. Pat McAfee, The Rock talking backstage. John Cena comes in, says, welcome home. They give each other a hug, end the segment. That's all that was needed. To see The Rock and John Cena backstage on SmackDown. It's funny. It's funny how you see these shows go 2, 3, 4 years with some of their top stars not there, and then when they show up, it's like they've never left. That always amazes me. Now you won't see The Rock on that show for a long time, but it's like, oh, he's still there. He's part of the crew. He's part of the group. But it was good to see that. Now the question is, the big question now is, why was The Rock there? I think you have to look into it. I do. I don't think it was just a one-up deal. I really think you have to look into why he was there for many, many, many reasons. By myself, I got to take a drink every minute. And, by the way, I got a sore throat. It's probably a good day that I'm by myself. Sore throat, stuffy nose. I sound ridiculous. But you know what? I'm here. Jeremy and Matt have covered for me numerous times, so I'm going to cover for them this episode. But let's talk about why The Rock is there. Because I don't think it was a one-up segment. There's, out of all the scenarios that I come up with, okay, it's one, by coincidence, he was in Denver. At the same time, SmackDown was in Denver. That could potentially just be the reasoning why it all just worked out. But there have been plenty of times WWE has been in Florida or Los Angeles or New York and The Rock is there. So Denver, I don't know. Is it to set up a possible, get him back on the product, to get familiar with the product again and get like, okay, he's back. Is he doing that as a way to get towards a match with Roman Reigns? That could be. That very well could be. Was it for, it just so happens to be the first SmackDown, the first WWE show under the TKO era? Take that back. No, I think it is. No, NXT I think was live Tuesday. NXT was probably the first official. I think Tuesday morning it went live. So, but nonetheless, SmackDown, the first official SmackDown of the TKO era, same week it happens. The Rock comes out. That may be what I'm looking for. Refresh the product, get people talking about WWE, get people talking about SmackDown, fresh off the heels of the TKO merger. People are going to say, were they all connected? Were they not connected? Was The Rock back as a gift to Vince McMahon? There's a lot of reasons why The Rock may or may not have been there. I think another one is, look, The Rock has taken a lot of hits lately. Okay? Black Adam, failure. A lot of stuff happened with the Shazam 2 movie with The Rock. A lot of emails got posted on what he liked or didn't like, wasn't going to take part in the show or the movie. So publicity-wise, The Rock hasn't been doing well the last couple of months. You have the XFL lost a shit ton of money, more than what they expected. Which, by the way, I heard they were in merger talks, the USAL League. Interesting. But nonetheless, The Rock is coming off of a very tough couple of months. Now, the reason The Rock was able to go to SmackDown is 100% the writer strike and the actor strike. That's why he's given the opportunity to go. That's not the reason why he went. That's the only reason why he was available in the first place to even consider going, is that those two things are happening at the same time. Ultimately, I think it's a combination of all of it. I think it's, it gets Rock, face value. It gets him back into the conversation with things in a good, positive way. He always has WWE for that. I do think they're trying to set something up with WrestleMania 40. A lot of stuff came out last week that they were very close to having a WrestleMania 39 match. In fact, The Rock flew Nick Khan and Vince McMahon out to California. They had a meeting with The Rock, trying to come up with potential storylines for The Rock, but apparently just couldn't get it done, which I'm not quite sure because they had a perfect storyline matched up for the Bloodline and the head of the table storyline. But nonetheless, they were very close with that. So I think it's a potential that WrestleMania 40 could be the prime spot for The Rock to return for a match. It's WrestleMania 40. They can highlight it. It's Philadelphia, where The Rock returned in 2001. So he's accustomed to coming back to the city of Philadelphia. So I'm not going to put that by either. I think it's a possibility that they're putting it towards a WrestleMania 40 match. I think it's because of the Endeavor deal. Why not keep the buzz going? And I do think it just worked out that he was in Denver. I think it's all of above. I don't think any one is more than the other. I think he was in Denver. He was in Colorado for the Pat McAfee show. He was able to come right to the show, do a segment with Pat McAfee. It boosts his image. It boosts his face value. Gets him in the news for some good stuff. I think he's interested in doing WrestleMania now that he has the time. So let's start putting it back into the product a little bit. And we're all off the heels of the TKO merger. So let's keep the hot storylines going through the weekend to this week. And now look, they're doing it. Look at TKO got launched. They were in the news about that. The Rock returned, all the news about that. TV deal today and the news about that. So they are lining up their good press to release this stuff to keep them in the headlines. And they were. Front page of Yahoo earlier today, TV deal with WWE. So on Saturday morning, it was The Rock returns. Dwayne Johnson returns to WWE Smackdown. So the publicity has been good for WWE. And they're trying to do that by announcing all these. So I wouldn't be shocked if more stuff continues to come out. Especially, if they're trying to, promote stuff over the layoffs that's happened at WWE and a lot. It's going to be a changing time for WWE. There are going to be a lot of things changing, which I think is ultimately good, which you got to expect with a merger of this magnitude. The only thing I'm surprised at is that they still are keeping their new WWE headquarters. I would have thought they would have got rid of that, but they didn't. They're going to keep them in Stamford, Connecticut. So, so that's it. So we have Falls Count everywhere on Monday. Make sure you check them out, YouTube, Matt and Jeremy. No Ring the Bell this week, but we'll be back next week again with Jeremy and myself on whatever hot topic Jeremy wants to get destroyed in. Maybe that's why Jeremy's not here. Maybe he got beat up too much. Maybe I got to tone it down a little bit. I know I had Matt laughing. He was sitting in the lobby when we were doing Ring the Bell, and he was laughing. So, and Steve, Steve's sitting here saying he doesn't know what Triple H is. No one knows what Triple H is. I've never heard more crazy comment in my entire life when it comes to wrestling. But Steve said it. But I appreciate you guys tuning in, watching me solo here tonight. Wrestling with a Business WWE podcast. Make sure you check us out. Comment down below. We want to hear your comments, positive or negative. Feedback is always great. Right here on WWE on Insane Games TV. Make sure you check us out on YouTube. Also check us out on Twitter. And we will see you next week with whatever is new and trending in the world of pro wrestling. Until then, for Matt and Jeremy, adios.